KIRO 7 Pinpoint Meteorologist Nick Allard.
It's 46 degrees in downtown Seattle. I'm Heather Bosch.
Listen on your smart speakers, Amazon, Google Home, and Apple HomePod. KIRO Radio 97.3 FM. News and talk, powered by the Pacific Northwest.
Got it. All right, here we go. All right. You know, I gave Tom a watch for his Christmas or something, and check that watch, make sure that thing's running. Oh, hey, Tom, how are you? How's that watch doing, by the way? Red button allows you to broadcast like a professional.
What time is it?
It's time for the show. Let's all wave to the camera. Mike sets the camera up, and then he runs away.
And he turns off my mic.
Can I ask you something? Why? Let me just talk to the people.
Address the elephant camera in the room.
Hold on.
Why are you watching?
Why are you watching? This is radio. Tom's there. Jacob's there. Why? Seriously, why don't you just stop the music for 1 second? I want you to stop and ask yourself something. Why? Why are you watching this? Okay.
If it wasn't for you, John wouldn't have to get fake hair, fake teeth, fake everything.
Okay, it's my own natural hair. Okay. Let me take you outside for 1 moment. Can I take you outside?
They can see we're not going outside on TV.
Music, please. I'm going to dive in.
It's good. There's only
Camera's ruining everything.
There's only 5 people watching.
You have a lot to explain yourself for.
So you wrote it. Why do you press the microphone against your boob before you speak?
Yes.
I put alcohol wipe on the can. Why are you watching? That's a better question. God.
No, the better question is, why do you do that, John?
Because I put alcohol wipe on. Okay.
Yes.
And then I need to get it off. Where else am I going to put it? That's the closest spot. Up on my forehead? Here. And it absorbs. Good God. This is not the news. The news is the fact that the King County prosecutor was in here with the Gee Ursula show. She was not here, but Felix stepped in. They asked him questions. They want to know about jail time, the shooting that occurred. So Dan Satterberg went through about 20-minute interview.
Yes.
We've cleaned the best. Here we go, explaining why these two guys are still on the streets, even though they have such a long criminal record.
Okay, so we're talking about the two shooters.
Yes.
The two outstanding shooters that have just now been returned
Those
to King
community
County from
members,
Las Vegas.
community members, Tom referred to them as community members, that got into a fight with another guy, shot at the guy, killed a woman, shot a bunch of other people, and then fled down to Las Vegas.
And I've got to say, I want to compliment Ursula Reutin for this interview because it's rare to get a quiet, rational voice. I mean, it's all the noise of talk radio hosts. We are as guilty as anybody. And Dan Satterberg just came in and he just had a very calm kind of,
Let's see if that works.
It was a great
see if
presentation.
That works. Okay, we're doing radio. Talk radio. Okay,
that's right.
Well, one, as you mentioned, was convicted of a robbery and unlawful gun possession, and the standard range sentence for that is a year and a day.
Which is weird. So if you have a gun and you commit a crime, I thought in the state of Washington that's a no-no, big no-no. That you've got a gun, I'm sure it's not registered, and you're committing a crime. Did he use the gun to help commit the crime, or was the gun just on him? That's also part of the story, too.
Yes, but we're not talking about – we're talking about their earlier crimes. They hadn't pulled a gun and shot anybody until this one. They
but
are
in
not
this case,
charged with a felony
he committed
now.
a crime, a robbery, and had a gun, and you do 1 year for that. 1 year and 1 day, I think, is the way it goes.
Okay, wait a minute. You're not talking about the shooting. You're talking about something previous to that.
Something previous.
So
1 day, you commit a crime, a robbery, and you have a gun.
Day in prison, and so
you get 1 day, 1 year and 1 day in prison.
Let's
just illuminating.
Spent a year and a day in prison. The other spent time in jail for illegal gun possession. They have a long misdemeanor history, and a lot of the arrests, and I heard on, I think maybe the chief of police had said they'd been arrested 25 or 50 times.
I think 60 between them.
Yeah, we went and looked at that. You have to understand that most of what they did were shoplifts. They're serial shoplifters, and they also have domestic violence in their past. And a lot of the arrests are because they didn't show up for court. You're charged with a misdemeanor. If you don't come to court, then the judge issues an arrest warrant, and you get arrested on that, and then they hold you in jail until you can come before that misdemeanor judge. So a lot of the arrests were because they didn't show up. They probably lost track of how many places they'd been charged with misdemeanor crimes. In misdemeanor courts, you don't get a lot of time in jail. And cities don't want to pay for somebody to be in jail for a year when they've shoplifted something.
At that point, I'd raise my hand and I'd say,
Okay, but that's a reasonable explanation and clarification for all these arrests.
so
How does
you
that
you
happen?
go in and you rob some store, and then you take the money.
Well, shoplifting, I'm not sure is the same as robbery. He's saying that
Right.
most of
Okay.
these were
Shoplifting is you're
Yeah.
robbing from the
Probably
store
not
owner
with a gun.
Right, but you're robbing from the store
Yes.
owner, and then you take the stolen goods, you sell it, and turn it into cash and buy drugs. That's normally the way it goes.
In
So,
these
Tom,
cases, there's no evidence for drugs, he said.
I understand,
These-
but
these
Tom,
individuals,
people don't
yes.
go in and steal stuff because they need a new coffee maker. They go in and steal stuff so they can convert it into cash. They're not
Okay.
steal. The reason they're
They're
stealing.
just misdemeanors.
I got it.
Okay.
Then you go in, you do a misdemeanor on the shoplifting, right? And then, but at what point wouldn't some system kick in and go, wow, this is the 5th time, or this is the 10th time we have arrested you for shoplifting, and we continue to just grind you through, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the problem is, even if they were ground through, even if they were caught, arrested, and
Yes.
sent to jail, we don't send people to jail for life.
No, I'm just saying they don't even send them to
So-
jail, or maybe
no,
they did a
do.
week or
He
2
says
weeks
they
or something.
do because
Yes.
misdemeanor criminal court cases, even if you're convicted of misdemeanors, you don't get that much time
All
in
right,
jail.
more from Dan.
The King County prosecuting attorney and every county prosecutor has felony jurisdiction, has
And
juvenile jurisdiction, and then misdemeanor jurisdiction in unincorporated parts of the county and also on the freeways. We do a lot of DUI practice from I-5 and I-90, those sorts of things. So what happens in city courts is very inconsistent. You might get a different sentence in Kent Municipal Court than you would in Seattle Municipal Court. It really is a lot of factors that go into that. So it's not a matter of just saying we're going to change all misdemeanor courts. There's actually hundreds of them in the state. Going upstream and saying, was there something about these these three guys that would have allowed us to do some sort of preventative detention? That's just not the way the system works. When they were caught, they were punished for the things that they did.
Caught and punished. So
Yes.
change the system. Sounds like we need to have done. Is
Well,
he just following the rules?
And
Just following the rules.
And how strict do you want? How much money do you want to spend? Most people don't want to have somebody spend that much time in jail, over a year in jail for a shoplifting incident.
I mean, who?
Misdemeanors. The
general public
society,
doesn't want to spend.
general public in general. I mean, because it costs money to hold these people. If you're just caught with shoplifting, do we want to say, okay, for every shoplifting case, you have to go to jail for a year or prison for if it's over a year?
But don't you understand? The shoplifting is just part of it. It's a teeny part of it. They shoplift so they can then convert the stolen stuff to cash for drugs.
Okay.
So in California or San Francisco, what they said is, if you steal anything under $900, we're not going to. People go in, they see what they want, they go in and steal something under $900. I think we forget the Prop 47 or whatever the law that went into place, and it was the swing pendulum back because they did this 3 strikes you're out. What they found was they were catching people on shoplifting and then putting them in jail for a long period of time. That doesn't
3 strikes,
work.
you're out forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, let's swing it back the other way. How about this?
Yeah.
And they made their arbitrary number of $900. So these guys aren't dumb. They steal something just under $900.
Okay.
So you go into a shop, and the shop owner, who's making minimum or marginal, profit, has 2 or 3 security guards in there stopping people that are stealing stuff more than $900. The rest of the stuff, they just let them go. That's basically, we decriminalize that part of it. That's what's happening in California.
So what Dan said, I don't know if we have this clip about drug addiction, but he says, we used to, back in the 80s and 90s when he first started out as a prosecutor, we used to just arrest everybody who was on drugs, and we realized that doesn't work. If that had worked, we arrested everybody, we wouldn't have a drug problem today. We do. That's not the way out, and that's why he came up with LEAD, this law enforcement assisted diversion program.
Yeah.
As was an act of retaliatory.
Okay, what are we talking
people
about now?
misunderstood the cause of the violence.
Okay, yeah. So why did this happen downtown on 3rd and Pine?
Okay, so you have
2 weeks ago.
3 community members.
As was an act of retaliatory urban gun violence. All right, the two groups.
Urban gun violence. I love it. It's not gun violence. It's human violence. But we call it gun violence because it makes it seem more palatable that it's the gun is the problem. But anyway, here we go.
As was an act of retaliatory urban gun violence.
It's Orwellian use of the words, Tom. Gun violence. It's not gun violence.
They
the person
used
is
guns.
a drunk driver, not a drunk car. So it's not gun violence. It's human violence. If a gun was sitting on this grand piano in front of us,
Yes.
is that gun violent? You tell me at what point
you
that
pick it up
what,
and
what
shoot
point
me, yes.
at what point does that gun become violent?
It's gun violence as
It
opposed
is not
to
gun. It is
as opposed
human,
to human
violence.
No,
it is violence
John,
with a gun.
If
Tom.
I punch you in front of, say, the McDonald's, I don't want to. I keep saying McDonald's because it
who's
gives
McDonald?
If I
Oh, that-
punch,
the
if
restaurant.
I punch you, that's different than if I shoot you. It's a good thing this is on radio. I hope the five enjoyed that on
I hope
the
you
camera.
enjoyed that. That's called an upstage punch, kids.
Yes.
Here we go. Oh, go on.
Okay, so that's why it's called gun violence, because I hit you.
Two groups of young
Not
men
with
who
my-
identify.
Go ahead.
If only people could see. People need to tune in to see what's going on in this case. John has a drink in his hand at this point.
I do not.
No.
If anything's in that, it's what's left over from you. Go on.
Okay, that's why they call it gun violence as opposed to physical violence, like tackling somebody or
okay.
punching somebody.
Okay.
So he calls it gun violence.
Gun
You're
violence,
awfully
yeah.
touchy on that.
Yeah, I am, because it's Orwellian use of the word, and it's the way to make the gun seem like the problem. The gun is
The
not
gun
the
was
problem.
the problem.
The gun. I've got one, and there's
I know.
330 million of them.
But
if we had a gun problem, we'd have a real big
The
problem. There's
violence
330
that
million of them.
happened was because of a gun,
No,
not because of a fist.
The violence that happened is because of the individual that pulled the trigger.
I know, but you have to make a distinction. There are fights all the time down in that corner. This time it got people's attention because there were guns involved and it killed somebody.
Right.
As was an act of retaliatory urban gun violence.
Gun
right?
violence.
Two groups of young
Community
men
members.
who identify with different gangs, probably some social media posts that sparked this as well, where and when they see each other, it's a fight on sight. And there was an immediate conflation with this act of urban gun violence. With homelessness, drug addiction, social chaos that comes with really this extraordinary moment that we have here in the country, in the West Coast for sure, with open and obvious homelessness. That didn't have anything to do with this case. These guys, and I have to go on evidence, there's no evidence these guys were dealing drugs. They don't have drug dealing history in their background. That's not why they were downtown.
Yeah, they're not dealing.
Okay.
They're not dealing. But
Okay,
they're buying, but they're not dealing.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, they haven't been
Why are
charged.
they shoplifting?
Well,
they like women's clothes. They like jewelry.
They're probably shoplifting for the money. But the odd thing
And what
is,
do with the
you
money?
assume
They're paying
they
off
were
their
gonna
college
use that
loans
for drugs.
What? They're paying off their college loans with
They
the money?
apparently were not in the drug business.
Okay.
They were in the hey, don't pick on my gang, I'll shoot you business.
Jetty Durkin brought up while speaking downtown. Do we care about this? This is Dan. She says, ask Dan Satterberg.
I believe personally that if a 22-year-old man opens fire on a street corner with a gun and he has that kind of arrest record, we have failed over and over and over again as a society, and we have to change that.
Who do we fail? Who have we failed? If he's a 22-year-old guy who pulls out a gun, we have failed. Well, who have we failed?
The rest of us?
Huh?
The 22-year-old, too.
They're applauding your answer.
We are investing unprecedented amounts to give our youth real opportunity and real hope. We're investing in social service programs, incredible messengers to get youth and get them so that they will not be pointed towards gangs or drugs. Thanks to people in this room, we are providing 2 years free college to every Seattle public student, and then we will provide them jobs and opportunity.
There you go. That's going to solve it.
But she did sort of throw Satterberg under the
She
bus.
did, in the press
Yeah,
conference.
that he would love. He says, I'm sure Dan would like to address it, and that's what he was addressing.
Okay. It goes this way. I go in and I rob something. I take the stuff I stole. I fence it. I get cash. I buy drugs. That's it. I have drugs with me, and in the city of Seattle, it's decriminalized. I can have up to 3 grams, whatever I'm allowed to carry around, and I know I won't get in trouble for it. So that's the little circle that goes through it. I go in and steal. Either I steal it from you by punching me in the face and tearing it off your neck like the lady with the necklace, or I go into a store and I steal it out of the store, and then I get the drugs. But then I can walk down the street, I can do the drugs, and the police don't do anything because we decriminalized it because, we can't just arrest our way out of this.
Well, you can't, but you can lead your way out of it. That's what the law enforcement assisted diversion that he started 9 years ago tries to do. And rather than taking you to jail where you wouldn't get that much time anyway, the idea is to try to get you a case manager and try to figure out a way to stabilize that individual. And that's that harm reduction format that he is working on.
Yeah, I wanted to see how well LEAD does when it comes to recidivism, and this is the interesting thing. Once you're in LEAD, you don't get arrested for following offenses. So once you're in it, then you can't be arrested.
Once you're in the diversion program?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can't be arrested for following offenses, thus eliminating future jail bookings. So then it looks like your recidivism rate is lower. But anyway, listen, the great thing about America is the fact that you have all these various experiments going on over the place. So you can see what's happening in California. How's that working? You can see what happens in Seattle. How's that going? You could go back to 2012, 2013 in New York City when they did stop and frisk, see how that worked there, see how things are going. So you go all these different experiments, say, well, what kind of city do you want to have? So here we go. Dan's basically saying, I don't have the tools in order to be able to make sure that these people are not properly taken off the streets for the rest of us.
Also, I think a significant thing he said is the system does not allow for preventative detention. That is the idea that, okay, listen, they're drug addicts. We're going to arrest them and keep them in jail because if we put them out in the streets, they'll continue to be drug addicts. That's not part of the judicial system to keep somebody in jail forever. If they maintain themselves at the misdemeanor level, what are we going to do about that? We're not willing to bunk that many people for that long.
May I have 1 minute on the clock, please, Sean?
Yeah, we can do that.
I met this guy, Tom, when I did that search and rescue thing with Union Gospel Mission. And I said to him, tell me about your history and your sentences and how many times you've been in jail. And he starts to walk me. Okay, I'm talking about some serious stuff.
It's the clock.
Oh, yeah,
it's
sure.
ticking.
Okay, I know, but that's making it comedy. I'm doing serious stuff here.
I know.
May I have 1 minute of non-comedy?
Keep on the clock.
Okay, here it is real fast. He starts to tell me I did this, this, and this. I spent 6 years here. I did 7 years there. I did 5 years here.
Yeah.
I ended up in the street. I go back, keep going with his life. 14 years old, drops out of high school. 10 years old, hardly completes third grade, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes all the way back to the fact that his mother, raising him, brought a boyfriend into the house. The guy sexually assaulted him numerous times. He said the third time I'm in the kitchen with my mom. I'm 4 or 5 years old. And I said, Jimmy is doing weird things to me at night. He said, right then and there, my mother looked me in the eye, and I know now that my mom made a choice. Jimmy, who's paying the bills, or my son? And my mom said to me, no, he's not. And I said, yes, he is, Mom. He's doing weird things to me. And she said, no, he's not. Just ignore it. Right there, my mom chose the guy to pay the bills, to pay the rent, than me. And right then and there, I was broken, severed, and a hole in my soul that I filled with drugs and crime, and I lived in the street for 15 years. It happened in the kitchen when the mother ignored the son. That's the damage done. Now, let me show you how society and Dan Satterberg is supposed to fix the hole in that guy that happened in that kitchen when his mother chose the paycheck to pay for the rent over the love of the child. That's it. And that's why you can't have tiki-tik, so that's a serious story. But there you go. That's society being busted. Those are the holes.
Right.
Those are the drugs.
You can't lay that at the feet of Dan Satterberg. You're right.
Okay. Is that camera still on? How about those two By the way,
I
Mike,
think so.
punched in the face twice during that segment. Watch that. Put that up.
That's right.
Let the people Twitter all over that. Oh, hey, welcome back.
Hi.
Oh, hi there. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You miss me?
Yes.
I missed you too.
Just Jacob's big birthday, and then he
I did. I missed the
I'm
birthday.
here and Miley are all googly eyes with each other.
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're watching a couple of things. First off, a drive time. 65 minutes from Bellevue